Hi, and welcome to Studio 411. I'm your host, Larry Dasilva. Thanks for joining us. And it's always a pleasure when we can welcome back one of our past guests. And this young lady, of course, amazing. It seems like the last time when she visited us, right afterwards, bigger and better things started happening for her. I'm speaking, of course, of Canadian actress Carolyn Bridget Kennedy. And she is involved with quite a few projects right now. She'll talk a little bit about her new websode or web series, forgive me, Danger Pay. And also she has landed the role on a kind of a Star Trek reboot called Galaxy Trek Vulcan, To Boldly Go, if I have that correct. She's playing Chief Medical Officer Dr. Victoria Hunter. And just marvelous, the things that are happening with her. And she comes back to join us despite her fame and fortune here on Studio 411. Carolyn, welcome back.
Hi, Larry. Thanks for having me. Hi, everyone.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. Tell me now, first and foremost, it literally was days after you were here for the taping, and next thing you know, you had communicated with me, or I saw it on social media, that you had gotten this new role. So talk us through the process. How did that all come about?
Well, it's a wonderful thing because you never really know what's going to happen in this industry, and you kind of have to stay quiet about things sometimes that you might know about. So sometimes you can have some really exciting things you want to talk about and you can't yet. I think when we had our last interview, I was still in the audition process for that role, so there wasn't really too much to say at that point. But it was quite interesting because I actually was sought out to audition for a different role on the project. And after my auditions carried through, I ended up getting offered a different role, which was originally being cast as a male character. So they felt like my personality was coming through such that I would be a very suitable choice for the doctor, the chief medical officer. And of course, it's just been an amazing experience ever since that time, including having my own trading card.
I saw that, quite interesting, a true collector's item. I
Yes,
bet you your husband has probably bought up an entire lot of them.
Well, I just thought I'd have Christmas gifts to give him on an ongoing basis.
Autographed and everything, yeah. And now, have you done any of those, kind of like autograph sessions or events where they have folks come out? I know they're very popular, especially in California. Have you done any of those up in Canada?
Yes, actually, there was one around Christmas time, and it was a ugly Christmas sweater autograph signing party. So I got to wear an ugly Christmas sweater that my husband had made for me at some point and sign autographs, and it was a wonderful experience. And of course, they have a lot more things planned because the show is hopefully going to be launched, I believe, in May this year. So, of course, we're looking forward to the release of the pilot, and hopefully things will take off from there and filming further episodes of season 1.
And educate me here, because again, I'm not always up to speed on some of these things. Obviously, as we talked before with the Bridget Linden show and some of your other past projects. Again, these episodes, for instance, with the Vulcan show, will run in terms of how many episodes are they planning, the length. I mean, it's a more condensed version of what a traditional drama or sitcom that we're used to, correct?
I think actually these are going to be full episodes, so it'll be, I believe, probably 44 or 45 minutes, so
Really?
Traditionally to what you'd see of an hour of television. The plan is to shoot 5 seasons of the show, and they're hoping to be on a schedule with that going forward, and then 5 feature films spanning in between each of the seasons.
There you go. Okay, so basically the 44, 45 minutes, which is pretty standard now to insert commercials and whatever, so then
Yes.
you're talking possible worldwide syndication, and I can see dollar signs already. Hopefully those dollar signs trickle down to all the cast members as well. So that's good. No, that's great. That's great. I think that's terrific. Let's talk a little bit about Danger Pay. That's your new produced series, web series you're doing. What's the premise of that? A little autobiographical, perhaps?
Well, life imitates art and art imitates life often. So as we say, write what you know. And to me, of course, I think when you take real experiences in life or perceived experiences of other people, and you can artistically treat them and create them in such a way that they become interesting, you know, out of the ordinary, out of the everyday, then you have something that can be quite comedic. So I have a lot of ideas usually going on about different projects and things I want to write about, but this one was particularly near and dear to me. So I would say the log line would be a paralegal takes a job working for a very bizarre lawyer out of his home in order that she can pursue her dreams. So danger pay is kind of a term in the industry. When you're going to be working for somebody who's maybe high maintenance or, you know, has a temper or is a little difficult to work for, you're getting danger pay because they're giving you a higher salary, so you will tolerate more. And so in this experience, I thought, you know, I wanted to create something. I really was a big fan of The Office on TV. I wanted to create something that would kind of be a home game version of The Office. You know, it could be a home office situation with a lawyer working out of his home, and that way I could shoot the episodes at my home.
There you go. All right. Carolyn Bridget Kennedy joining us here on Studio 411, carolynbridgetkennedy.com for much more information. In addition, again, and I don't know if I mentioned it before, the character she plays on the show Galaxy Trek Vulcan to Boldly Go, Chief Medical Officer Dr. Victoria Hunter. And I mean, you're in some good company because, again, it immediately reminds folks of that whole Star Trek genre. Maybe a little bit. There was a show, actually it was done, I think, in Canada years ago called Space 1999, which was really almost kind of cultish. So again, it just, folks just soak all that stuff up. And as you said, the fact that you're going to be possibly doing some film episodes as well, feature-length film episodes, it sounds like it's pretty intriguing. But you're kind of carrying the torch for all the marvelous Star Trek and that kind of genre shows of the past. You had a bone up, obviously, on all that. That's a whole kind of history lesson in itself.
Yes, it is. I've been definitely learning as much as I can about the whole history and all the different movies and the different series that have come out of this great storyline. And I feel very blessed to be a part of it. It's obviously very exciting, very fun. It's something, putting a new twist on things. It's Star Trek inspired, this series, and it's for the Trekkies. It's for the fans. This is something that is kind of different. We have an away team, and 2 of them are beamed down to Earth, to Vulcan, Alberta, and there actually is a town here called Vulcan, and it is the Star Trek capital of Canada. So
is that the one where I saw that? I saw that pedestal with the giant recreation of the ship. Was that it? There you go. Okay.
There's a Trek station and everything. It's wonderful.
They can film right on set there. They don't even have to go very far. No, that's terrific. That's terrific. Tell me too about, you've got another endeavor going on. It's like there's so many to talk about. WBF TV comedy, and talk to me about that. I know you might have mentioned that when you were on last time. That was kind of in the works. So tell us a little bit about what that stands for and the fine folks that you're working with there.
Sure. I got together with another actress here in the city. Her name is Celeste Millay, and she and I are both of the opinion that if there is no work to be found necessarily for actresses here in Calgary, that we need to create our own projects. So we decided, very much like in comedy, and there's not a lot of comedy things that are coming out of Canada, casting in Calgary here, and we created our own sketch comedy series. So WBF TV Comedy stands for Women Being Funny on TV. And the first skit that we released was a parody of the Wayne's World skits. And quite like our appearance, which is quite funny. She has very dark hair, and I have blonde hair. So I took the role of playing the female Garth-like character. And coincidentally, I actually own these little black framed glasses that were perfect for the part. So we wrote a skit together. We produced that together, and we filmed it together. And my acting coach was here from Africa, and he directed the episode and made a guest appearance. So it was wonderful.
There you go. So now you were playing the Dana Carvey character, right, Garth, and then
yes.
Celeste was
I
playing.
named my character Martha Almar instead of Garth Algar.
Okay. So. And Celeste played the Mike Myers part,
Yes,
correct? Yeah.
she was Elaine Cowbell instead of Wayne Campbell. So
There you go. Oh boy, definitely.
yes.
You have to you have to see it to believe it. That's all I can tell you. That was very humorous
It
indeed.
was a lot of fun, and the chance to kind of explore other characters or take things that you really admire that have been created and put your own artistic twist on it is just an amazing opportunity.
I was thinking you should do another Canadian legend there, the Mackenzie brothers. You should do a spoof on them. Rick Moranis and who was the other? Oh, I'm having a blank here. Rick Moranis, and who was the other? There was the other actor. You don't remember the
Is it
Mackenzie
John
brothers?
Candy? I'm
No, it
not
was
sure.
another of the SCTV guys. Anyway, someone if they know, scroll on the window or something. But yeah, Rick Moranis and I'm blanking on the other. I see him, but I can't think of it. But that very funny guys. Again, that whole kind of Canadians up in the Arctic cold, whatever. So it was good stuff.
Yeah,
Good stuff.
we have a fair amount of ideas, and some are going to be parodies, and some will be our own original material. So we'll probably have a combination of things.
There you go. We talked off air about this, so just dwell on it a little bit. Some surprising things you were telling me about working in Canada. I was unaware that, again, there are some kind of limitations, restrictions that I'm sure you probably feel might hamper your progress or your career in terms of where you can act or what stipulations you have to go through. Kind of, share a little bit with what you and I were talking about, the difficulties
Sure.
about working in Canada and coming to the States.
Well, it's definitely set up difficult in a difficult fashion for actors and actresses, for sure. To get into the States, we need to achieve an O1 visa, which means you're kind of an exceptional performer in some capacity, recognizable internationally. You have some special, unique skills. So basically, if you achieve an O1 visa, you are the only person who is you, and no one else can replace you. And this is why you're able to enter into and work in the United States. You're not taking a job away from another actor because you have such a powerful name. So that's something that we as Canadians, if you are in the acting industry, we really try to work towards. But there's a lot of requirements that you need to kind of attend to and get, and you have to, achieve a certain number of reference letters and a certain standing within social media, certain number of film credits and certain rating, within the film industry, and obviously people in the film industry endorsing you that, they believe that you are worthy of participating in this field and you have some exceptional gift. Working in Canada, of course, we're kind of chopped up with our provinces and the different tax credits that are structured. So we have, I believe, about 50 productions that shoot in Vancouver. However, living in Alberta, I'm not entitled to work in BC because I do not have a BC driver's license and a BC health card, which allows producers there to get their tax credits back on money they spend on film and television projects. So it really kind of chops down everything to saying, okay, you've got to work in Alberta and make yourself recognizable and known in Alberta. And then when you have a name, then we'll look at bringing you into BC, Toronto, or down to the States to film projects, once you get this O1 visa. I see it not as hindering me. I see it as a big goal to work towards. This is the rules and this is the way they are, but it's like you learn how to work within the rules and how can you work around this. You've got the internet now, and I really feel it's kind of old-fashioned to say that we should be restricted by the territories we're in. It would really be fair to say, because YouTube and such provides us with international reach, that doors are opening and things are changing, and we need to look at this and say if people are talented and they have a gift, their postal code or zip code shouldn't define whether or not they're able to follow or pursue their dreams.
Now, does that also apply? And I'm going to use people like Loverboy, Bryan Adams, countless others that right now I'm trying to think of. Musical performers, are they restricted by those same guidelines?
They would also need to get an O1 visa, and I would not be sure, though, what the credentials would be that they would need to meet to get that O1 visa. I'm more familiar with acting, and if you're assigned an O1 visa, it is specifically for the one field you're given it in. So if I'm given it as an actress, I can work at the United States as an actress, but I would not be able to work there as a writer. So that's kind of, the catch-22 on it all. But I feel, I can I can write here, I can produce here, I can direct here, and I can hopefully eventually act in the United States, which is what I would love to do.
Sure. I may have asked you when you were on before, but just curious, inspirations of yours. We'll start with female, either actresses, comedians, growing up. Who were some people, males as well, that you were influenced by, or that you kind of maybe think you pattern yourself or pay homage to?
Okay, I would say I've always had a big heart for comedy. So, in the early days, it was maybe Three's Company and these other type of shows where there was a lot of comedy and lightheartedness. At that time, the actors that were involved in these projects, there weren't as many shows as there are today, and the actors at that time, I don't think, played as heavy of a hand in creating their own projects. And we're seeing a major shift right now with what's happening with the internet. A lot of actors are now taking creative control and writing and producing their own content. Ben Stiller writes and creates and produces his own films and projects that are suitable with roles for him. Tom Cruise is doing the same thing. As far as my particular people I admire, I would say now that I'm learning more about the industry and what it takes to accomplish and make movement in it, I really admire people who have believed against the odds and kind of kept pushing and working with that inner drive of comedy in them. Seth Rogen is somebody I quite admire, actually, because he's basically told people, if you have an idea, everyone has a smartphone, there's no reason you can't be going and filming things and creating things, there's no reason to sit and wait and say you need someone to make something for you. And it's easy to have an idea, but develop that idea, take it and make it happen and learn from it, and then try to make something else and continue to making that better. I'd say Amy Schumer is someone I admire. She's definitely taking, comedy, moving into stand-up, and then moving into, writing her own sitcom series that she has, and then feature film, which Judd Apatow, admired her work and offered to direct the first project that he has not written himself. Tina Fey is someone I really admire. Amy Poehler, James Franco, anybody that's kind of driving this comedy bus. And I'm a huge fan of Kevin Hart.
There you go.
I think he's really hustling, and he understands, when things are moving, it's not an excuse to take a break. At that point, you keep going for what's next, keep moving with it. You have one life to live, and you've just got to make the most out of your time here.
Something you said reminded me, and I forget who it was, the one example that was in an article I read where not only musicians, now with a simple, not necessarily a keyboard, but you know what I'm saying, something literally the size of a laptop, doing their own albums, or in the case of with an iPhone and obviously some minor other technical equipment, literally someone, literally did like not only a short film, but I think someone almost did like a full-length feature movie. I'm not saying it had huge special effects or action scenes, but just the fact that they were able to put something of an hour or 70, 80, 90 minutes together with some sort of viable content, to me is amazing. Imagine if you gave that person a real budget, what they'd be able to do.
Exactly, and I think that's the idea is, if you have ideas, rather than, carrying them in your head and nobody can understand what you have going on, show people, bring it to life, show someone what your concept is. It doesn't have to be technically perfect, and whatever project you're making, that's the only way you're going to learn how to make something better, and if we look at the greats, not everybody's going to make a masterpiece. The point is to start something, finish it, get it out, and move on to something else. You'll keep improving over time and learning, and people have the opportunity to find you and see if you do have something to offer.
Now you brought up Kevin Hart, and I'm not trying to diss on one person or the other, but give me your thoughts. Chris Rock, who 20 years ago was like a Kevin Hart of his time, and Kevin Hart. Now, obviously, what's the difference? Well, Chris Rock is 20 years older.
Yes.
And successful, and monetarily so, whatever, and many other things, and of course, just has hosted the Emmys the Oscars rather, a couple of times, and then you have Kevin Hart, who is all those things maybe 20 years removed. It's like a golfer, someone who like early on is tremendous, and then do they lose that competitive edge? And again, I'm not trying to diss on Chris Rock, but what is it that that maybe there's a little like edge missing when someone gets like too established, too successful, or do you disagree with that concept?
Well, I don't know. I guess what I've admired about Kevin Hart is the fact that he says, at the time when things are going well for you, that's not the time to back off and take a rest. That's the time to, spread your wings and fly. Like take it and enjoy it, work with it. And, I've seen him develop over the last number of months. He's hosted Saturday Night Live a few times, and he's been on the cover of several magazines. He's got a very strong Twitter following. And that Twitter following that he himself has earned has given him the ability to negotiate additional fees for movies and projects he works on, and helping to promote those with the following that he's built. So I think he's very brilliant, and he's quite funny. And I think any celebrity and everybody needs kind of their downtime and maybe time to regroup, or they have personal things going on, and you can't always control the roles that are coming into you, but if you can be proactive about it and make your own projects and keep the momentum going in between, I think that's key in this industry nowadays.
I read an article the other day about a musical performer, Lady Gaga, and of course, she's apparently must have a tremendous drive, and many others, past and present, do, I'm sure, as well. But the basic, I'm going to take they say, I'll take 3 months off, whatever, and then come back to tour, record, whatever the case. 4 days, and it's like, okay, I got to get back in the studio. It's almost like,
yes.
And I get the impression you're like that as well. It's just, okay,
yes.
get the vacation, out of your system, because we got to go back to work, and
it's hard because it's kind of in my blood. And of course, I work at home now, so it's, working kind of all the time, and there's no real line between personal and work anymore. It kind of all blends together because it really becomes who you are. It's something that you love so innately. I wake up in the middle of the night, and often, I'm trying to get my sleep, and I walk in to go get a glass of water, and all of a sudden I'm thinking, oh, so that's what happens here. I got to write that down because this is what happens in this story. It's like, it just doesn't stop. And the social media, that keeps things moving. It's not like, we're in a day where you kind of get mail in a mailbox once a day, and that's the only contact you have. You have this endless stream of contact coming in.
And
so
I'm sure you would agree.
Learn to manage it a bit.
I'm sure you would agree. There are times where you kind of have to, kind of shut it off for a little bit, or walk away.
I do.
At least for a half an hour.
I need to sleep, or I have to eat, or I'm going for a walk. I have to work really hard on focusing on being present. And of course, when I'm on a project, I have to kind of shut down and focus, especially if I'm writing.
Some kind of guest questions that we throw in once in a while. Tell me one of your most memorable moments in front of the camera. Something that you say, wow, that really made an impression on me, or maybe someone you were working alongside.
Okay, I'd say there's probably two that come up for me right away. One is the first time that I had gotten a speaking role, and just the sheer exhilaration of, changing from being a piece of the furniture kind of in the background, one of the people that they want to blend in and not be noticed, a background person with no lines, to now being a person where they're actually, lighting for you and trying to get you into what's happening, and just the exhilaration of having that accomplishment and that level of, experience.
There you go. We have
I would probably say the first day filming Star Trek and being in my Star Trek uniform with all the other cast of Star Trek all in their uniforms on our set, and just the exhilaration of that. I think everybody drove home that night, and we probably weren't asleep till 2 or 3 in the morning, because it was just so exciting to be a part of something that's just so, widely renowned for being a piece of cultural history.
There we go. And we have a little picture of that, if we can get a shot of it. Carolyn Bridget Kennedy, Vulcan, to boldly go, Galaxy Fleet Starship Discover is the name of the ship. And there is a shot of Carolyn. And again, I'm sure if you go to carolynbridgetkennedy.com, you'll see many more shots of her. I love you even have some shots where there are taken at some writing sessions and some kind of off-camera, shots that are impromptu. So I think it's great. I think
Yes.
you're doing your part to help promote things, and I think big things. Let's see.
I think it's very important as an actor that you work together with producers. You know, you have an obligation to have an audience and build an audience and have people to bring to your projects. You know, it's something you can add and give, and I believe that's part of my job.
I told you we had a surprise, and so we're gonna see. Again, I'm not gonna embarrass you, but we have a Star Trek trivia quiz.
Oh
So
my God.
So let's see. We'll try to give you some softballs, as they would say.
I didn't study.
No, I know you did. Let's see. Okay. Before gaining fame on Star Trek, in what movie did actor Leonard Nimoy first appear as an alien from outer space? That's a little tough.
Oh my God, you know what? I don't know, but I have seen the very first episode, the pilot, and then I saw the first episode of this series with him playing Spock, but I don't recall what he did prior to that.
He was in a movie, I want to say it was in the middle 50s, and I've seen a still of it. It was called, not an A-list movie, but In the Zombie Vanguard. So
oh, wow.
look that one up, and then you'll see. You might even see him looking a little like a young Spock. I don't know. You know, it's amazing. Let's see. What famous former Star Trek actor directed Three Men and a Baby?
Oh my God, I have to think now. I've seen Three Men and a Baby, but I have no idea who the director is on that too. I haven't seen it in years since it came out.
Leonard Nimoy directed that. Yeah.
Did he really?
Yeah, he didn't do the sequel. The sequel was actually not a trivia question, but just something for folks to stump their friends and family. The movie Three Men and a Little Girl was actually directed by the same gentleman, now deceased, who directed Dirty Dancing.
Okay.
Emilio, and I'm blanking on his last name, but anyway, he was there. Let's see now. Okay, what size crew did Captain Kirk? You can go run these by your BFF there and see how smart he is.
Okay.
What size crew did Captain Kirk command aboard the Starship Enterprise?
My God, I'm sure it would have been a bigger crew than just the people we saw, because there was always those back portions of the ship and the people that came and went, and I'm sure it would always be plus or minus one based on how many red shirts they lost that week.
Take a guess.
I don't know. I would have to guess 100 and change. Would I be wrong?
Well, way off. You know, swabbing those decks and cooking those meals. 430 crew members.
Okay.
Amazing.
But some days 429 and some days
yeah.
431, depending on whether they got any new ones, I guess.
They might have, what's that term they used? They might have, not tasered. What was the thing when they used to get, if they got beamed somewhere else, then you'd add and subtract until they came back. And let's see now, let me give you one more here. What was antimatter used for on the Starship Enterprise on the Star Trek TV series? What was antimatter used for?
You know what, I would have to know what antimatter was to figure that out too.
It was to power the ship's engines.
Okay.
So it must have been some sort of, I don't know, atomic fuel or something. And let's see, one more here. What does Mr. Spock of Star Trek have to have every 7 years?
My God, I don't know the answer to that either.
Yes.
Clearly, I should be watching a lot more Star Trek because I don't know the answer to that, Larry.
Yeah, most males might say every 7 days, but anyway, SEX. I didn't know that, so that's pretty good. I was impressed by some of these answers or some of these questions.
Experiencing a drought.
I'll give you an easy one. What science fiction TV show is originally going to be called, quote, Wagon Train to the Stars?
I hope it's Star Trek.
Yes, if I had a bell here, I'd be ringing it frantically. Wagon Train to the Stars. I think Gene Roddenberry at some point either might have written for the series, the very popular series in the 60s called Wagon Train, and or he envisioned that kind of stable of like crew members, as in this case with Star Trek, you know, kind of with a lot of guest stars coming in and out. So I think that's, the Wagon Train to the Stars. Okay, did not, as Carson would say, did not know that. Okay.
I like the other name better.
Yes. Carolyn Bridget Kennedy, www.carolynbridgetkennedy.com. Actress, and just sleepless nights, this young woman. Just, I don't know how she how she keeps her wits about her with all the different things she's into. Gentleman that you ran into a few years back, I'm just curious, and when I saw the photo of the two of you, Russell Brand. Tell me about that encounter. I'm sure.
Fun encounter, obviously.
I'm
very
sure Russell
brief.
was very taken by you. I have no doubt, at least from the photo I saw.
In a way, maybe, I'm not sure, but he sure headed right in a beeline for me. So, but I was in, I believe it was the Aria Hotel, and he was performing there at a concert. And I happened to be kind of in the hallway out where the doors where he came out after he was finished performing his show. And he was kind of with a couple of crew people he had, and he basically saw me, and I, kind of was walking by, and he headed straight for me, and I had my phone in my hand. I just passed my phone quickly to, somebody, and they took a picture for me, and his fellow that was with him basically said, okay, we got to get going, and moved him along further. But I had this, 2-second instant where he threw his arm around me, and he was right beside me, and then gone.
I don't have that image, but I'm sure it can be found on the internet. When I saw that image, it reminded me of a classic photo of Bogart seated between, I think it was Sophia Loren and Jane Mansfield, if you can visualize poor Bogey. Okay, he really was outgunned. And all I know is when I saw you and Russell, I just thought to myself, I don't think he even knew who Katy Perry was at that moment. I'm telling you, and a brunette there. You were going through a phase, I see, huh? Brunette.
I was going through a phase. I got to keep everyone guessing. So
there you go. Let's see now. Another question. Favorite word?
Favorite word? Okay, here we go. Tintinnabulation.
Okay.
It's the pealing of bells.
Pealing of
For
bells.
whatever reason, it's one of those words that not too many people know, but it's stuck with me ever since, I believe it was high school and studying Wuthering Heights, and we had to make these little index cards out. So if I ever have the moment to use the phrase about the pealing of bells, tintinnabulation is a word I love to throw in there.
And I think now that I've subtly implanted that in your head, I look forward to seeing that word used in one of your series. So I'm sure. Maybe not the Galaxy Trek, but I think we'll see you utter that
it's something I write, I'll find a way to put it in.
We'll see you utter that to your fictitious boss on Danger Pay, and I can just see the confused look on his face. So no, that's good. Worst movie you ever paid to see?
Okay, I have to say it was probably just because, I don't know, I wasn't following it, and it was probably a little disjointed. It was The Adventures of Dr. Parnassus or something to that effect.
The movie when
Heath Ledger died.
Yeah, and then
during the making of that film.
Yeah.
And then I think they probably had to change plans and get several people to kind of play his character throughout the film.
Yeah.
Obviously it was visually interesting, but I had a real hard time kind of piecing together where they were originally trying to go with that and where they ended up.
Yeah, the director, Terry Gilliam, who's best known for Monty Python fame. Well, he was one of the troupe back in the day. Did movies like Brazil and directed a lot of other good movies. Again, at that point, it was basically a salvage project because he got, Johnny Depp and a couple of other gentlemen to kind of, I guess, play that character in different stages, or the character had the ability to change its, the facial and body images, whatever. So,
right.
I think at that point, there's
they
probably...
did what they could to carry it out.
Oh, sure.
That's really what it is with filmmaking. You have a challenge that presents itself, and when it does, you have to find a way to continue making your project come to life and not letting it die. So in this case, they worked around it, but I found it difficult to follow for me.
Now, does doing what you're doing, and I'll leave it up to you to put this part in. If someone said, okay, what do you do? Now, you're an actress, is that the answer you would give them? Or if someone says, what do you do? What is your profession? Or how do you answer that?
That's a good question. Well, I guess I say actress for the most part because it keeps it simple. But, I do go by the term actress, writer, director, producer. And I think all of the hats kind of are needing me to wear the other hats because I want to act and there are a limited number of projects for females in film, limited number available of roles. They're majority usually male roles. And then when you get to the female roles, majority younger female roles, and then you take that and you put me in Alberta, Canada, and all of a sudden the roles get much smaller yet. So in that case, if I want to act, I can create my own characters. I can write them. I can come up with them and create my own stories. So that kind of one feeds the other. Then if I have a story, well, how do I show everyone my story? Well, I have to film it, so I've got to produce it. So suddenly I become a producer, and at the same time, needing to be aware of what's happening and taking place in the episodes. If I take the artistic head, then I'm wearing the director's hat. So it's one of those things where by necessity, I feel like I just don't want to sit around and wait for roles to come to me. I don't want to be the needy actress that's sitting and waiting for my phone to ring. I want to feel strong about taking charge of my own career. And one thing I can do is certainly create my own characters and characters and like projects that will have a role that's suitable for me.
Now, does doing all that, obviously in various stages, sometimes more of this, more of that, whatever, on occasion maybe 2 out of the 3, or who knows, maybe all 4 at times, which, certainly I know you would welcome. Does that ever get overwhelming?
No, it's kind of exhilarating. It is a little overwhelming, obviously, when you have people who come on board to a project that is funded. You have people who are specialized in each area, and in a position like this where you're an independent filmmaker, you're very much learning as you go. Definitely, I'd say with each project, the evolution is happening, that I'm learning things that I wouldn't do in other cases, but it's helpful to me because I know what those jobs entail, and I know a little bit of the language and the things that is involved, and if I'm able to work at a higher level at some point, then I'll be able to obviously, have a respect and understanding of numerous positions. It's kind of why I train, like I told you, in multiple areas. I've been a first assistant director. I've just taken a grip and lighting course. So, I definitely want to understand and respect everybody's jobs on a film set. And I'm, hoping to train to continue to direct, but hopefully larger scale projects. I would like to continue to produce, again, larger scale projects as we go, and I want to continue to write. I'm presently working on writing my first feature.
There you go. Now, do you find that when you're on, let's say, the Galaxy Trek show, especially there, because obviously there are other people that are, pulling the buttons and pulling the strings, do you find that you find yourself really, when you're not, let's say, on camera, but you're, let's say, watching the proceedings, are you kind of like a sponge, or you're kind of soaking all that in?
Definitely, yeah. I director shadowed a short film for 3 days last year too. So anytime I have an opportunity to be a sponge, I'm listening. But I definitely know which hat to wear and when to wear it. So when I'm an actor, I definitely know I'm an actor. I'm not the producer. I'm not the director. This isn't my creative endeavor in that capacity. I'm strictly there to help move the story forward. I'm an actor. But I, in the back of my head, understand what the producers are thinking and what their concerns are. I'm aware of what the director needs from me and how he needs to get it. So it kind of is there, underneath the surface. You're aware of what people are needing and expecting from you. And that, I think, helps a lot as an actor.
There you go. Carolyn Bridget Kennedy joining us here for the hour on Studio 411, CarolynBridgetKennedy.com. And, of course, amongst her many projects, Danger Pay, a web series that she is writing, producing, not directing quite yet, but I think you're going to get there, and obviously really manning the controls there. And speaking of manning controls, also the Galaxy Trek web series Vulcan to Boldly Go, where she plays Chief Medical Officer Dr. Victoria Hunter. All right. Don't know if we touched about it before, but we talked with guests about, sometimes they're there and this is their specialty, but health and wellness. Tell me a little bit about, like you obviously are always in such good physical condition. Tell me a little bit about, I know we talked about some issues you had when you were younger, but now in the present, what do you do, or what do you not do in order to maintain the good health and the the appearance that you project to your viewers?
Well, it's obviously, something I kind of view like brushing my teeth, just a self-care thing that I need to do on a daily basis. I've been pretty avid with walking, so I usually take about an hour-long walk in the morning. I try to get the fresh air, see what the weather's like, check out the birds, be in nature for a little while, and I find that that is really good for me. I also go to the gym. I'm a member of the YMCA, and I've long been supporting the Y. I really believe in their values of, spirit, mind, body, wellness. And I go there, and I also weight train, and I do, cardiovascular activities there. And I have my resistance training certification from years ago when I lost the 110 pounds. So I know a lot about that, and I'm very cautious with cooking and eating. I'm very health aware of what I need. I kind of look at each meal of what I need to get. I'm a bit of a carnivore, protein oriented, so I make sure I have, my protein, my essential fats, my carbohydrates, 5, 6 small meals a day. So I'm a constant eater. In 2 or 3 hours, if I haven't eaten, I'm looking to chew my own arm off.
There you go. There you go. Well, I sense, like so many others in the the entertainment profession, that obviously have to maintain a certain physique or try to whatever. That again, so many of them wind up writing books about their experiences and what they like, what they don't like. Again, not saying they're necessarily a quote expert on it, but again, it's what works for them. So obviously, they're someday she'll be on talking about her new health and wellness book too, as well. So
I would love to encourage people in that capacity, because I know how it feels to be struggling with that. And I lost an entire shoe size with my weight loss. So,
wow.
everything changes. And I know I need to feel my best health-wise, physically, mentally, on set, and when I'm working on these creative projects, and this helps me stay on top of my game.
We talked when you were on last time about somehow about musical instruments and things that you did. I saw somewhere where you've perhaps in your sleep, I don't know, because I don't know where she would have the time, but you've taken up the piano again. So tell us a little bit. Do you have one in the house, or are you just using a keyboard? Or
I do have a piano in the house, and actually it's funny because I taught myself to play the piano when I was young. I had 2 older sisters that lived in the home, and they had both taken piano lessons. And there were all these piano books all the way up to grade 10, and there was everything from, Beethoven and Bach and Mozart and whatever you could possibly imagine. So in my spare time, because I was just a really fun child, I would sit and I would play the piano by myself and just slowly start to teach, and I learned how to read music. I also was a very avid alto saxophone player, and I also played soprano saxophone. And I believe 4 summers I went to international music camp in North Dakota
good.
on scholarship while I was in school. And when I graduated, I was actually offered a scholarship to go to university for music. So I was considering doing that because I was the lead saxophone in our jazz band and in the concert band, and that was kind of the direction I was heading in. But I took a completely different path. I was also very, right-brained. I was a left brain, right brain person, so I could kind of do both. I was very mathematically geeky, 98% is my final grade for the entire year of, grade 12 math. I was good with that, but I decided to go into law, something a little bit more practical. And the musical side has always been there, and on occasion I sit down and play, and I really enjoy it, so it keeps the creative juices flowing.
Now, when's the last time you picked up a saxophone?
I'm glad you asked that, because it was just within the last week.
Because I can see that working its way into a Danger Pay episode. You see, I'm giving her all these like subtle cues, folks. Yeah.
I think it just might, and it was quite funny. I was surprised how much I could still play with it. It's this beautiful Yamaha Semi-Pro, so it's just this gorgeous thing with like mother of pearl keys, and I took it out and it's on the stand downstairs, so I intend to start playing a little bit more often. So if you think you hear Canadian geese honking, it's just me on my saxophone.
That's right. Yeah, there you go. Now, I did even ask a colleague of mine. You and I had talked about this off air, and again, I found that fascinating as we wind down the program today with our guest, Carolyn Bridget Kennedy. You had told me that you, on not one but 3 different occasions, have been to Cuba And I was just talking yesterday with a colleague of mine who is also from Canada. And he says, oh, yeah. He says, yeah, everybody, a lot of people go there. I don't know about now because now things are going to start to get more expensive, whatever. But, tell me a little bit about your experience because obviously as we enter, this new phase of relations, at least between the U.S. and Cuba, we all kind of thought they were literally like locked away from the rest of the world, except maybe Russia. And I honestly, as a history buff, I had no awareness that Canadians with a Canadian passport could just go to Canada. Now, if I had a U.S. passport and I was in Canada, I couldn't go to Cuba.
I believe you can, and there was like a little question about this because the first trip I had to Cuba was in 2007, and I have an aunt and uncle who are in the United States, and it was for a family wedding. And they were a little reluctant to travel to Canada and fly from Canada to Cuba with their American passports just because of the way things were standing. So they opted not to go, but I believe they could have gone. So, I don't know. I loved my experience in Cuba. I've been there, like I said, 3 times. I think the last time was around 2011 or so. And I found the people there to be very friendly, very kind, very well educated. They have a free university system. So even, people who work at the resorts have a degree in entertainment. The singers, the musicians, they're all highly talented people.
There we go. Carolyn.
I really, my heart kind of melted, There's the salsa, but there's the Cuban salsa, and it has a tiny extra flair than the regular salsa dance. So everything about it is just a little bit of a twist. And of course, it's like being in a bit of a time warp. There's no, all the cars are from the 1950s, 1960s. Absolutely beautiful to be in this kind of time warp in time. And you don't see billboards and advertising and things like that you see everywhere. Everything is government owned. So the store is just the store. There's no McDonald's or, brands that you see here.
Give it time, my dear. Well. Give it time. I think you will.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, for someone like yourself and many others, obviously Canadians, I think in the next 10, 20, 30 years, you're going to see perhaps on a very subtle basis, I think, look at China. China for years, resisted whatever. Oh, they're out of the question. And now I hear there's, McDonald's. And again, not that there's anything wrong with those companies. It's just that, it kind of takes away from this, as you said, kind of simple nature. But at the same time, very much held back, oppressed, for lack of a better word.
Very oppressed for sure. And I think it's one thing I've always had in my mind. Every time I've traveled, I've kept it in, extra crayons, coloring books, toothbrushes, toothpaste, toiletries, lotion, shampoo, anything you can think of that you can bring, that you can leave behind for people there because they either can't get it or they can't afford it. So, if you can give those kinds of things as gifts to people rather than money, it's almost more appreciated there.
There you go. And she'll in the future leave some discs of Danger Pay episodes.
That's right. Cubans need comedy too, Larry.
Absolutely. And those cars, you said 60s. I forgot to ask my colleague that I was talking to about this. Really, I think they're 30s, 40s, 50s. If there's any 60s automobiles, they must have been brought in from maybe Scandinavia or from Russia.
Perhaps, yeah.
Because, again, they're basically having to build their own carburetors because all those cars, and I assume unless they did a total engine rework, they're running on basically almost a high test fuel because in those days.
And they do keep the vehicles within the family. Whoever the vehicle was, it's now their grandsons or whoever. It's just been passed down because the vehicles were so hard to get and they've had to rebuild them.
I saw a program where, one of those shows like you see on some of the networks where folks that collect things or anything old or antique, whatever, not Antique Roadshow, but where they restore things. And there are people, I tell you, in this country, and I'm sure in Canada, just with chomping at the bit to start, bringing some of those autos back here. Because they'll get them for pennies on the dollar, and they'll turn around and sell, a 57 Chevy, or a 54 Buick or Olds for, huge amounts of money.
My understanding is that they're not allowed to sell their vehicles, that they had to stay within the country of Cuba.
Right at that point, of
Yeah.
course, because they couldn't get it out anyway. But I think you're going to see a lot of ships that are going to the cargo hold is going to be loaded with a lot of goodies.
Yeah, well, I wish the people of Cuba all the best with this transition. You know, it did break my heart at times to see oppression and hard times there, but, you know, very genuine hearted people, and I'm sure the American people are going to start to see that as they go over there, and, you know, things are evolving in a positive way.
There you go. Let's see. We've asked this of a few guests, only obviously changed the last word. What does it mean to be a Canadian? I sound like an old song or from 1970 about a guy who did a song. He was Gordon something or other. He was a newscaster, and he did this song that became a big hit in this country. And it was something along the lines of, what is it like to be a Canadian? And it just went on and had this patriotic music in the background. But again, what does it mean for you to be a Canadian?
Well, it was actually funny because there was a video about in Canada that was done by the Canadian arms, the astronaut that traveled to space, and he did this video about in Canada, and this entire song was about, you know, we jump in lakes, we say this, we say that. You know, we definitely have a few words that are a little different from American language, and we take dialect coaching to get that out in the film and television industry. But I would say, you know, we're sincere people, we're very kind people, we're very polite, we apologize a lot for things that maybe aren't even our fault. You know, I've been in Las Vegas and taken away chips from people and been like, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So, you know, we're kind-hearted, and we really want the best for everyone. We obviously are very connected to the United States. You know, a majority of our television and film comes from there. Quite often, I think we forget, and we kind of feel like we are the same, except when we go down there and we realize, you know, maybe we are a little bit different. But I'd say, you know, we're kind of the same as you guys, only we're probably on the global thing, seeming to be a little bit more naive and more outgoing and a little bit more, you know, positive and friendly on a general basis.
Absolutely. Things to remember that we all can learn from, believe me. Well, as we come to the end of this episode of Studio 411, again, I am telling you, as soon as this program airs, there will be a big announcement that she withheld from me, her not so BFF friend. But anyway, then we'll just have to have her back on. So again, Carolyn, I appreciate you coming on as always, making time. Look for Danger Pay, let's see, which again continues on. Also Galaxy Trek, let me make sure I get that correct. Vulcan, To Boldly Go, the Starship Discover crew. And again, just great stuff, and I couldn't be happier for you. Tell Richard that some of those questions we asked on the Star Trek, and I'll send you the answer sheet so you can quiz him. And
Sounds good, and thank you very much for having me, and I look forward to making it a three-peat. I want to work my way to get my Larry Dasilva honorary velvet jacket for being like the most times of being on your show.
Oh, there you go. By then, someone else will already be on 4 or 5 times. So who knows? But it'll be like an ongoing thing. We'll have her on
keep making things happen, Larry.
We'll have her on the Christmas show. It'll be like Pee-wee's Playhouse. So, anyway, thank you, Carolyn, and hang in there with us a second. We've come to the end of another episode of Studio 411. We appreciate you joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again next time. Have a great week.